The first dump truck arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday. I know the exact time because my security camera caught the headlights cutting through the morning fog across the Quarry basin. The truck was a white Kenworth with a red dump bed, and it was backing toward the eastern rim of the old limestone cut. I was standing at my kitchen window with a cup of coffee when I saw the brake lights flare and the bed start to rise. The sound of 20 tons of broken concrete hitting the basin floor travels farther than you would think. It echoed off the rock walls like a thunderclap, and my coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. I set the cup down. I pulled on my boots. I grabbed my phone and my jacket, and I walked out the back door toward the Quarry road. The gravel was still wet from the overnight rain, and my boots left deep prints in the mud as I crossed the property line. The property line that had been recorded in the county parcel map since 1972. The property line that the HOA president, Karen Whitmore, had decided no longer mattered. By the time I reached the rim, the truck was already pulling away, and a second truck was backing into position. The first load of debris sat at the bottom of the basin like a gray wound against the green restoration slope I had spent 3 years planting. Native grasses, wild rye, little bluestem, all of it buried now under chunks of concrete and twisted rebar. I did not yell. I did not wave my arms. I took out my phone, and I started recording. The second truck dumped a load of dirt mixed with landscaping waste. Sod, mulch, broken pavers, plastic edging. The third truck carried asphalt millings. The fourth carried more concrete. I counted 7 trucks in the first hour, and every single one of them had the same magnetic sign on the door. Whitmore Construction Services. Karen Whitmore's family company. I stood there in the cold morning air, recording every license plate, every load, every minute, and I did not say a word to the drivers. They were not the ones I needed to talk to. The person I needed to talk to was the woman who had told me 6 months earlier that the quarry was dead land, and that the HOA had better uses for it. The woman who was about to learn what a reclamation bond actually means. Before I explain what happened next, tell me where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know where the quiet ones are tonight. My name is Ellis Cole. I am 54 years old, and I am a retired civil engineer. I spent 30 years designing retaining walls, drainage systems, and slope stabilization projects for county governments across 3 states. I know what fill material looks like. I know what a reclamation plan looks like. And I know exactly what happens when someone dumps unauthorized material on a bonded reclamation site. The quarry had been in my family for 51 years. My grandfather bought it in 1973, after the limestone operation shut down, and the previous owner walked away from the reclamation obligation. The county was going to seize the property for back taxes and environmental violations. But my grandfather, a man who had spent his life building bridges and culverts and never once walked away from a problem, stepped in and bought the whole parcel at a tax auction. 47 acres, a flooded pit at the bottom, sheer rock walls on 3 sides, and a legal obligation to restore the land to a safe, stable condition. He worked on it for 20 years before he died. My father worked on it for another 15. And when my father passed away in 2019, the quarry became mine. I retired early, moved into the old farmhouse on the North Ridge, and dedicated myself to finishing what they started. I graded the slopes. I planted the native seed mix approved by the county. I installed erosion control blankets and silt fencing. I built a drainage swale that carried stormwater away from the basin floor and into a natural wetland at the south end of the property. The quarry was not dead land. It was healing land, and I had the county inspection reports to prove it. The reclamation bond was something my grandfather had negotiated with the county back in 1974. It was a private bond, not a public surety bond, but a private financial instrument held by the County Environmental Management Office. The bond required the property owner to complete the reclamation plan according to the approved timeline and specifications. If the owner failed to do so, the county could call the bond and use the funds to complete the work themselves. But if the owner complied, if the land was restored according to the plan, the bond would be released and the property would be certified as reclaimed. We were 3 years from certification, 3 years from the finish line. And now Karen Whitmore was using my quarry as a construction dump. I walked back to the house and called the County Environmental Management Office. The receptionist put me through to a man named David Okonkwo, the Senior Environmental Compliance Officer for the Eastern District. I had met David twice before, during routine inspections, and he knew the quarry file better than anyone in the office. "David," I said, "I have a situation at the coal quarry parcel. Unauthorized dumping, construction debris, multiple loads this morning." There was a pause on the line. Then David said, "Who's dumping?" "Whitmore Construction Services. The HOA is renovating the clubhouse, and they're using my basin as a disposal site." Another pause. Longer this time. Then David said, "Ellis, do not touch anything. Do not move any material. I'm pulling your file now. I'll call you back in 20 minutes. I hung up and walked back outside. The trucks were still coming. I counted 3 more loads before my phone rang again. "Ellis," David said. His voice was different now, tighter, more formal. "I have your reclamation bond file open in front of me. The bond is still active. The reclamation plan is still in effect. Any unauthorized fill placed on that site is a violation of the bond conditions. If the material is contaminated, if there's asphalt, concrete with unknown additives, landscaping chemicals, the liability could be significant. Who authorized the dumping?" "The HOA president, Karen Whitmore. She told me 6 months ago the quarry was dead land, and the HOA had better uses for it. I told her no. She did it anyway." "Did you give written permission?" "Never." "Did the HOA board vote on this?" "I don't know. I'm not a member of the HOA. My property is outside the covenant boundary." David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm coming out there. I'll be there in 90 minutes. Do not engage with anyone until I arrive." I said okay and hung up. Then I called my son. Marcus is 26 years old. He's a drone operator and a photographer, and he lives in a small apartment in town, about 15 minutes from the quarry. When I told him what was happening, he did not ask questions. He said, "I'm on my way," and he hung up. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with his drone case, his camera bag, and a look on his face that I recognized. It was the same look my father used to get when someone tried to cheat him on a contract. Quiet, focused, dangerous. "I want aerial footage," I said. "Every truck, every load, every license plate. I want a complete visual record of everything they've dumped." Marcus nodded and started unpacking his drone. Within 5 minutes, the drone was in the air, its camera capturing the full scope of the operation. The quarry basin from above looked like a wound that someone kept pouring gravel into. The green restoration slopes were being buried under a growing pile of construction debris, and the trucks kept coming. By 9:30 a.m., I had counted 14 loads. The pile at the bottom of the basin was now roughly 30 feet wide and 8 feet high. Broken concrete, asphalt chunks, dirt mixed with sod and mulch, pieces of old lumber, twisted metal from what looked like a demolished storage shed, and something else, something I recognized from my years in civil engineering. Pieces of what appeared to be old asbestos cement pipe. I felt my stomach drop. If that material contained asbestos, the liability was not just financial, it was criminal. I called David again and told him what I had seen. He did not say much. He just said, "I'm 20 minutes out. Do not let anyone leave." At 9:47 a.m., a white Lexus SUV pulled up to the quarry entrance. The door opened, and Karen Whitmore stepped out. Karen Whitmore is 58 years old, and she looks like she was manufactured in a factory that produces HOA presidents. Blonde hair styled into a helmet, white blouse, navy blazer, khaki pants, shoes that had never touched mud in their lives. She was holding a clipboard and wearing the expression of someone who believed the entire world was her jurisdiction. Behind her, a second vehicle pulled up, a black pickup truck with the Whitmore Construction logo on the side. A man in a hard hat and a reflective vest got out and walked toward Karen. I recognized him from the neighborhood. His name was Tom Mercer, and he was the foreman for Whitmore Construction. I had seen him at the clubhouse renovation site a few times, and he had always seemed like a decent man. Competent, quiet, the kind of guy who did his job and went home. Today, he looked uncomfortable. Karen walked toward me with the clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I was told you were out here taking pictures. I want to assure you that everything is perfectly legal. The HOA board voted last month to utilize the quarry basin as a fill site for the clubhouse renovation. The material is clean. The operation is permitted." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "Show me the permit." She blinked. "The permit is on file with the HOA management office. You are welcome to request a copy through the proper channels." I am not asking for the HOA's internal paperwork, I said. I am asking for the county permit, the environmental permit, the permit that allows you to dump construction debris on a bonded reclamation site. Show me that permit. Karen's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then the polished smile returned. Mr. Cole, the quarry is dead land. It has been abandoned for decades. The HOA is improving it by filling the basin and creating usable green space. This is a community benefit. The quarry is not dead land, I said. It is an active reclamation site under a private bond with the County Environmental Management Office. Every load of fill you dump here is a violation of that bond. And if any of that material is contaminated, you are looking at criminal liability. Karen's smile did not waver, but something behind her eyes shifted. She turned to Tom Mercer. Tom, is the material clean? Tom hesitated. The concrete and asphalt are clean, but some of the pipe we pulled from the old storage shed. I'm not sure about that. I told you we should have tested it before we hauled it. Karen waved her hand. It's fine. It's all fine. Mr. Cole is just trying to cause trouble. She turned back to me. The HOA has legal counsel. If you want to dispute this, you can take it up with our attorney. But the trucks will continue. This is board approved. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I took out my phone and I recorded her saying those exact words. Then I said, please put that in writing. Excuse me? Put it in writing. Send me an email. Tell me that the HOA board approved the dumping, that the material is clean, and that you are authorizing the operation on my property. I want it in writing. Karen stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short, brittle sound. You are being ridiculous. This is community property. The board has full authority. This is not community property, I said. This is my property. Parcel number 14-7-203-019. Recorded in the county parcel map since 1972. Outside the HOA covenant boundary. And if you do not believe me, you can check the county records yourself. Karen's smile finally cracked. She turned to Tom. Keep the trucks moving. I'll handle this. Then she walked back to her Lexus and drove away. Tom stood there for a moment, looking at me. His face was hard to read. Finally, he said, she told me the board approved it. She told me the quarry was HOA property. It's not, I said, and you need to stop the trucks. The county environmental officer is on his way. If he arrives and the trucks are still dumping, your company is going to be named in the violation. Tom's face went pale. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I heard him say, stop the trucks, no more loads. I don't care what Karen said. Stop them now. He hung up and looked at me. I didn't know, he said. I swear to God, I didn't know. I believe you, I said, but you need to be prepared to tell that to the county officer. David Okonkwo arrived at 10:22 a.m. He was driving a white county SUV with the environmental management logo on the door, and he was accompanied by a second officer, a woman named Patricia Vance, who I later learned was the county's solid waste enforcement specialist. David walked to the rim of the quarry and looked down at the pile of debris. He did not say anything for a long time. Then he turned to Patricia and said, start the documentation. Photographs, samples, chain of custody. Patricia nodded and began pulling equipment from the SUV. Sample jars, gloves, a camera, a clipboard with a chain of custody form. David walked over to me. Ellis, I need you to walk me through everything. When did the dumping start? How many loads? Who authorized it? I told him everything. I showed him the security camera footage. I showed him Marcus's drone footage. I showed him the recording of Karen Whitmore telling me the trucks would continue. I showed him the photos of the asbestos cement pipe fragments in the debris pile. When I mentioned the pipe, David's expression hardened. If that material contains asbestos, he said, this is no longer a civil violation. This is a criminal matter. He walked over to Tom Mercer, who was standing near his truck, looking like a man who had just realized his career was in jeopardy. Are you the foreman? David asked. Tom nodded. Yes, sir. Who authorized you to dump on this property? Karen Whitmore. She's the HOA president. She told me the board approved it and the quarry was HOA property. Did you verify that? Tom hesitated. She showed me a board resolution. It looked official. Did you check the county parcel records? No, sir. David wrote something on his clipboard. Then he said, I am issuing a stop work order for this site. No more material is to be placed here. The existing material is not to be disturbed until we complete our investigation. Do you understand? Tom nodded. Yes, sir. David turned to me. Ellis, I'm going to recommend that the county call the reclamation bond. The unauthorized fill is a violation of the bond conditions. The county can use the bond funds to remove the material and restore the site. And if the material is contaminated, the responsible parties will be liable for the full cost of remediation. Who are the responsible parties? I asked. Whitmore Construction Services, David said, and potentially the HOA, if the board authorized the dumping, and potentially Karen Whitmore personally, if she acted outside her authority. I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, not yet, but something close to it. The machinery was moving now. The county was involved. The bond was triggered, and Karen Whitmore had no idea what was about to hit her. The stop work order was posted at 11:15 a.m. David and Patricia spent another 2 hours on site, taking photographs, collecting samples, and documenting the debris pile. Marcus kept his drone in the air, capturing aerial footage of the entire operation. By the time David left, I had a complete visual record of everything that had happened. That afternoon, I drove to the county recorder's office and pulled the full parcel file for the Quarry property. I also pulled the HOA's recorded covenants, the plat map for the subdivision, and the board meeting minutes from the past 6 months. I wanted to know exactly what Karen Whitmore had told the board, and exactly what the board had approved. The answer was worse than I expected. The board meeting minutes from the previous month showed that Karen had presented the quarry as abandoned HOA property that could be used as a fill site for the clubhouse renovation. She had told the board that using the quarry would save the HOA approximately $47,000 in disposal fees. She had presented a resolution authorizing the dumping, and the board had voted 4-1 in favor. The one dissenting vote came from a board member named Angela Reyes. I made a note of her name. The minutes also showed that the clubhouse renovation had gone significantly over budget. The original estimate was $320,000. The actual cost was now approaching $490,000. The HOA had already spent $170,000 more than planned, and the disposal fees for the construction debris were a major part of the overrun. By dumping the material in my quarry, Karen was not just saving money, she was hiding the cost overrun from the residents. I sat in the county recorder's office for 3 hours, copying every relevant document. The parcel map, the deed, the reclamation bond agreement, the HOA covenants, the board minutes, the clubhouse renovation contract. By the time I left, I had a folder 3 inches thick. That evening, I called Angela Reyes. Angela is a retired accountant, 62 years old, and she has lived in the subdivision for 15 years. When I told her what had happened, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I knew something was wrong. Karen said the quarry was HOA property, but I couldn't find any record of it. I voted no because it didn't feel right, but I didn't have proof. I have proof, I said, and I need your help. The residents need to know what's happening. The HOA is hiding a $170,000 cost overrun, and they're using my property to do it. If the county calls the reclamation bond, the HOA could be liable for the cleanup costs. The residents need to know before the next board meeting. Angela was quiet again. Then she said, the next board meeting is in 4 days. I'll make sure the residents know. But Ellis, Karen is not going to go down without a fight. She has the board lawyer. She has the management company. She has half the residents convinced she's saving them money. Let her fight, I said. The county file is already open. The bond is already triggered. She can fight all she wants, but she can't fight the reclamation plan. The next 4 days were a blur of phone calls, emails, and document preparation. David Okonkwo called me on Friday morning to tell me that the initial sample results showed asbestos in the pipe fragments. The material was confirmed contaminated. The county was escalating the case to the Solid Waste Enforcement Division, and a formal notice of violation would be issued to Whitmore Construction Services and the HOA. The bond is being called, David said. The county will use the bond funds to remove the material and restore the site. The total cost is estimated at $180,000 to $220,000. The responsible parties will be billed for the full amount. What about the criminal liability? I asked. That's up to the district attorney, David said. But I can tell you that knowingly dumping asbestos-contaminated material on an unauthorized site is a felony in this state. The DA is reviewing the case. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table for a long time. The morning light was coming through the window, and I could see the quarry basin in the distance. The pile of debris was still there, covered now with a temporary containment tarp that the county had placed. The restoration slopes were still buried. The native grasses were still dead. But the machinery was moving, and Karen Whitmore was about to learn what happens when you dump on bonded land. The HOA board meeting was scheduled for Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse, the same clubhouse that was still under renovation, with plastic sheeting over the windows and construction equipment in the parking lot. The irony was not lost on me. I arrived at 6:45 p.m. with my folder of documents, my laptop, and a USB drive containing the security footage, the drone footage, and the county violation notice. Marcus came with me, carrying his camera equipment. Angela Reyes met us at the door. "The room is packed," she said. "Word got out. People are asking questions. Karen is already on the defensive." "Good," I said. "Let her defend." The clubhouse meeting room was filled with residents. I counted at least 60 people, which was more than I had ever seen at an HOA meeting. The board members were seated at a long table at the front of the room. Karen Whitmore was in the center, wearing another navy blazer and the same polished smile. To her right sat the board lawyer, a man named Richard Holloway, who I recognized from the neighborhood. To her left sat the HOA treasurer, a nervous-looking man named Paul Chen. Karen called the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. She ran through the standard agenda items: minutes approval, financial report, committee updates, with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been running meetings for years. The residents listened quietly, but I could feel the tension in the room. People were waiting. Finally, Karen opened the floor for new business. Angela Reyes raised her hand. "I have a question about the clubhouse renovation," Angela said. "The original budget was $320,000. The last financial report showed expenditures of $490,000. That's a $170,000 overrun. Can you explain where that money went?" Karen's smile tightened. "The overrun is due to unexpected structural issues and increased material costs. The board has been managing the project carefully, and we expect to bring it in close to the revised budget." "Close to the revised budget?" Angela said. "The revised budget hasn't been presented to the residents, and I've heard that the HOA has been dumping construction debris on private property to save on disposal fees. Is that true?" A murmur went through the room. Karen's smile vanished. "That is a misunderstanding," Karen said. "The board authorized the use of an abandoned quarry basin as a fill site. The quarry is HOA property, and the material is clean. This is a cost-saving measure that benefits the community." I stood up. "The quarry is not HOA property," I said. "It is my property. Parcel number 14-7-203019, recorded in the county parcel map since 1972, outside the HOA covenant boundary, and the material is not clean. The County Environmental Management Office has confirmed asbestos contamination in the debris. A stop work order has been issued, the reclamation bond has been called, and the HOA is facing a cleanup bill of up to $220,000. The room went silent. Karen's face went white. "That's not true," she said. "That's absolutely not true. The quarry is abandoned land. The board approved the use, the material is clean. This man is just trying to cause trouble." I walked to the front of the room and placed my folder on the table. I opened it and pulled out the first document. "This is the recorded deed for parcel 14-7-203019, I said. "It shows that the property has been owned by the Cole family since 1973. It is not HOA property. It has never been HOA property." I pulled out the second document. "This is the reclamation bond agreement, recorded with the county in 1974. It requires the property owner to restore the quarry according to an approved plan. Unauthorized fill is a violation of the bond conditions." I pulled out the third document. "This is the county notice of violation, issued 3 days ago. It confirms asbestos contamination in the debris dumped on my property. It orders Whitmore Construction Services and the HOA to cease all operations and prepare for remediation." I pulled out the fourth document. "And this is the board meeting minutes from last month. Karen Whitmore told the board that the quarry was HOA property. She told the board that the material was clean. She told the board that using the quarry would save the HOA $47,000 in disposal fees. None of that was true." I looked at Karen. You used my property to hide a $170,000 cost overrun. You dumped contaminated material on a bonded reclamation site. And now the county is going to make you pay for every single load. The room erupted. Residents started shouting questions. Board members started talking over each other. Paul Chen, the treasurer, was frantically flipping through his financial reports. Richard Holloway, the board lawyer, was whispering urgently to Karen. And Karen was frozen in her chair, her face a mask of shock and fury. "This is a setup," she said finally. "This is a coordinated attack. The board acted in good faith. The HOA has legal counsel. We will fight this." "You can fight it," I said. "But the county file is already open. The bond is already called. The cleanup bill is already being calculated. And the district attorney is reviewing the case for criminal charges." Karen stood up. "This meeting is adjourned," she said. "No," Angela Reyes said. "This meeting is not adjourned. The residents have questions. The board has been hiding a $170,000 overrun. The HOA is facing a $220,000 cleanup bill. And the president has been lying to the board and the residents for months. We need answers." The residents started clapping. Karen looked around the room, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear. She sat back down. What happened next took 3 hours. Angela Reyes led the residents through a line-by-line review of the clubhouse renovation budget. Paul Chen, the treasurer, admitted that he had been pressured by Karen to approve expenditures without proper documentation. Richard Holloway, the board lawyer, sat in stony silence as resident after resident demanded to know why the HOA had been dumping on private property. And then Tom Mercer stood up. He had been sitting in the back of the room, still wearing his work clothes, his face drawn and tired. He walked to the front of the room and faced the residents. "I'm the foreman for Whitmore Construction," he said. "Karen Whitmore told me the quarry was HOA property. She showed me a board resolution. She told me the material was clean. I believed her. I hauled 14 loads of debris onto Mr. Cole's property because I believed her." He paused. "But I should have checked. I should have verified the property records. I should have tested the material. I didn't. And now my company is facing a $220,000 cleanup bill and possible criminal charges. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to tell you the truth. Karen Whitmore lied to me. She lied to the board. She lied to all of you, and I have the emails to prove it." He pulled out his phone and read aloud. Email from Karen Whitmore, dated 3 weeks ago. "Tom, the quarry is abandoned HOA property. The board has approved its use as a fill site. The material is clean. Proceed with the dumping." He looked up. "I have 12 more emails just like that." She knew. She knew the quarry wasn't HOA property. She knew the material hadn't been tested. She knew everything, and she did it anyway. The room was silent for a long moment. Then the shouting started again. Karen Whitmore resigned as HOA president the next morning. The board held an emergency meeting and voted to remove her from all HOA positions. Richard Holloway resigned as board lawyer 2 days later, citing irreconcilable differences with the board's direction. Paul Chen, the treasurer, agreed to cooperate with a full financial audit of the clubhouse renovation. The County Environmental Management Office completed its investigation 3 weeks later. The final report confirmed asbestos contamination in the debris, unauthorized dumping on a bonded reclamation site, and knowing violations by Whitmore Construction Services and Karen Whitmore personally. The cleanup bill was finalized at $197,000. The county called the reclamation bond and used the funds to begin removing the debris and restoring the site. Whitmore Construction Services was ordered to reimburse the county for the full cleanup cost. The company's insurance carrier denied coverage, citing the knowing violation exclusion in the policy. Tom Mercer was not charged. He had cooperated fully with the investigation and provided the emails that proved Karen's deception, but the company itself was fined $75,000 for environmental violations, and its business license was suspended for 6 months. Karen Whitmore was charged with 3 counts of illegal dumping, 1 count of fraudulent misrepresentation, and 1 count of criminal negligence. Her attorney negotiated a plea deal that included 18 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a personal fine of $50,000. She was also ordered to pay restitution to the HOA for the cost overruns she had hidden, a total of $170,000. The HOA residents demanded a full budget audit, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. Karen had been manipulating the HOA's finances for years, inflating contractor invoices, steering contracts to her family's company, and hiding expenses in obscure budget categories. The total misappropriation was estimated at over $400,000. The HOA filed a civil lawsuit against Karen Whitmore and Whitmore Construction Services, seeking full restitution plus damages. The quarry restoration took 8 months. The county used the bond funds to remove every load of debris, test the underlying soil, and replant the native grasses that had been buried. David Okonkwo visited the site every 2 weeks to monitor the progress, and by the end of the restoration, the quarry looked better than it had before the dumping. The reclamation bond was released in full, and the county certified the quarry as a reclaimed site. The certificate is framed in my kitchen now, next to a photograph of my grandfather standing at the quarry rim in 1974, holding the original reclamation plan. Angela Reyes was elected as the new HOA president. She implemented new financial controls, hired an independent management company, and established a resident oversight committee for all major expenditures. The clubhouse renovation was completed 6 months later, on budget and with full transparency. Tom Mercer started his own construction company, a small operation focused on residential remodeling. He sent me a letter a few months after everything settled, apologizing for his role in the dumping and thanking me for not pursuing charges against him personally. I wrote back and told him that everyone makes mistakes, and the measure of a person is what they do after. Marcus's drone footage was used as evidence in the county investigation and the civil lawsuit. He still flies the drone over the quarry sometimes, capturing the progress of the restoration. The footage from those first few days, the trucks, the debris, the stop work order, is stored on a hard drive in my office. I have not watched it since. I do not need to. I remember every detail. The quarry is quiet now. The native grasses have grown back. The drainage swale is working. The wetland at the south end is full of birds and frogs and the sound of water moving through the cattails. I walk the rim every morning with my coffee, and I listen to the wind moving through the trees. And I think about my grandfather and my father and the 51 years of work that went into this land. Karen Whitmore thought the quarry was dead land. She thought she could use it and bury her mistakes and walk away clean. She was wrong. The quarry was never dead. It was healing. And healing land has a way of exposing the people who try to hurt it. The last thing I did, after the restoration was complete and the certificate was framed and the lawsuit was settled, was walk down to the basin floor and plant a single oak tree at the center of the restored slope. It was a small tree, maybe 3 feet tall, with a thin trunk and a handful of leaves. I dug the hole myself, and I filled it with clean soil, and I watered it from the same bucket my grandfather used to use. That tree is still there. It is taller now, and every spring it puts out new leaves. The quarry is healing, and so am I.